glory, absolute power, rule. Monarchs ruled for decades, God-appointed, infallible, immortal. History, sad to say, proves otherwise. Crowns as delicate as paper, thrones only temporary. Death just doesn't care for royalty. They believed that their position would protect them, but to them, their moments of death were not peaceful. They were soaked in blood, covered with deceit, and marked with suffering pain. Welcome back to part 2 of The Death of Royalty, where we learn even more gruesome deaths of medieval queens and kings. Some were murdered in cold blood, others were embarrassed in death, and some were just eradicated from the face of the earth. Here we go. James I of Scotland, the king who couldn't escape death. February 21st, 1437, Perth, Scotland. James I of Scotland was invincible. He had overcome English captivity. He had ruled for over 30 years. He had defeated his enemies time and again. But on the late night of February 21st, his previous misdeeds finally caught up with him. At the Perth Blackfriars Monastery, James was betrayed by a group of his own nobles. Armed raiders, oiled by Sir Robert Graham, stormed the monastery, guns aloft, murder in their hearts. James tried to escape. He pried up the floorboards, desperation to slip into a subterranean tunnel. But fate had cruelly turned against him. The very corridor had been sealed off by his own decree only days earlier. Cornered and defenseless, stabbed at least 16 times. His screams were heard echoing through the monastery. Daggers ripped through his body. His lifeless corpse left butchered on the cold floor. A Scottish king, assassinated like a commoner. Peter III of Russia, the deposed emperor. July 17, 1762. Ropsha, Russia. There are kings and queens assassinated by invading forces. Others by their own relatives. Peter III of Russia had only 6 months at most as ruler before being overthrown in a coup by his own wife, Catherine the Great. Catherine's ambitions were far more than her feeble-brained husband's, and if she was to be heir to the Russian throne, Peter had to disappear. After he abdicated, he was held captive within the Ropsha fortress. Official letters reported that he had died from natural causes. The truth, strangled in his cell, most likely at the hands of Alexei Orlov, one of Catherine's loyal officers. Those final minutes weren't exactly befitting nobility. There were witnesses who saw a feral struggle. Peter in distress, wildly struggling against his killers, body twisting before the life went out of it altogether. Once powerful Tsar, lying as a corpse on a prison floor. Sigismund III Vasa, the king whose death is a mystery. April 30th, 1632, Warsaw, Poland. Some kings die in war, some are murdered, but some just die, leaving more questions than answers. Sigismund III Vasa, king of Poland and Sweden, was a divisive king. He was unable to impose Catholic rule on Protestant soil, leaving bitter enemies on both sides. In 1632, he came down with a sudden illness. The formal verdict, a stroke. But courthouse rumors were something else. Was he poisoned? Did his enemies finally get the better of him? His body supposedly turned black, lips purplish, waxy pallor. Evidence of a natural death, or something much, much worse. No one today still knows what killed him. A king who lived his life fighting to gain the upper hand, to be murdered by an unseen enemy. Ivan VI of Russia, the forgotten Tsar, July 16th, 1764, Schlüsselburg Fortress, Russia. Dream of being born a king, but never having the chance to rule for 1 hour. Ivan VI of Russia was made a king in infancy in 1740, but a revolution overthrew him before he was even able to speak. For 23 years, he was confined in solitary isolation. No visitors allowed, no education, no first name. To his captors, he was not human. He was a menace. Then, in 1764, an officer tried to set him free, but the guards had been ordered brutally. If anyone tried to let Ivan go, he was to be killed instantly. And so, he was stabbed to death in his cell. No throne, no rule, just silence. And then, nothing. The Tsar vanished from history. You might think these assassinations were about revenge, betrayal, justice, but secretly. They were more than anything else about fear. February 13th, 1542. Tower of London, England. The dense woods, vivacious fifth wife of Henry VIII, Catherine Howard, will prove quite disastrous to her at the ripe old age of 19. Such was the allegation of an affair with Thomas Culpeper, and she was dead the moment whispers of betrayal reached the ears of the king. This icy February morning, with that great scaffold beneath her feet, she was not only a queen condemned, here a terrified girl caught in the deadly politics of the Tudor court. One stroke of the heavy sword would take her life, another sad leaf in Henry's bloodied book. May 19th, 1536, Tower of London, England. Anne Boleyn's story is the most typical one. Rise and fall. There was a time she was the most powerful woman in erstwhile England who was accused of adultery, incest, and treason, of which most historians presume to be political charges. On that fateful morning in May, as the sun dawned, she knelt in front of the executioner's sword on Tower Green, where her bravado in accepting death surprised onlookers. The sword fell, and with it, the lady who changed the history of England. However, her legacy continued, with her daughter, Elizabeth I, going to be one of the beloved monarchs of England, thus making it sure that the tale of Anne was far from over. September 10th, 1167, Rouen, France. Life of Queen Matilda was a life made up of wars, disloyalties, and the shattering of dreams. She fought a bitter war for the English crown with her father, King Henry I, sending the nation into bloody civil war known as the Anarchy. She never ruled over the throne, but her struggle left England in turbulence. She passed away, lost from the crown. She devoted real effort to fighting. In 1167, she is famously not recalled as a queen, but as a reminder, warning that power is never assured. Because his reign was too powerful to be left unchecked, James I was assassinated. Peter III was strangled, because his wife had no limits upon her ambition. Sigismund III Vasa was most probably poisoned, because his enemies feared what he might become. His mere existence became dangerous, as Ivan VI was assassinated. Because her infidelity threatened the stability of Henry VIII's rule, Catherine Howard was executed. Because her political influence and marriage to Henry VIII were seen as a threat, Anne Boleyn was executed on charges of treason. Because her claim to the throne was opposed by rival factions, Queen Matilda's cause was undermined, leading to her eventual loss of power. Although she was not executed, she lost her throne. They were kings and queens. They are victims. Warnings. A grim reminder that power will not save you. It will haunt you. Kings and queens ruled, but not forever. Their crowns could not save them. Their power was fleeting. They died alone, in the dark, betrayed, forgotten. And what did history do? It did not remind them of their victories, but of their sufferings. Now it's your turn to weigh in. Which of the royal deaths shocked you the most? Were they just punishments or cruel acts of vengeance? Let us enter the discussion here.